Welcome. It is Verdict with Senator Ted Cruz. Ben Ferguson with you. And Senator, we've got to break some news here. Apparently, I was spied on because I texted you during a period when you were spied on, which means I was spied on. I feel like my name should be in this a little bit here. We thought it would happen. It came out. It's real. Congratulations. They really wanted to see what you were texting, and I think they're going to be highly disappointed. I'm not going to lie.
Look, I think my texts are pretty damn amusing, and I'm sorry you have no sense of humor. I need to text you more about when Ole Miss doesn't win a football game. But you're right. The news broke. The news broke in the last couple of days that the Biden Department of Justice, Jack Smith, issued a subpoena spying on me, trying to get information about my cell phone, about communications I was having, about voicemails, about text, all the information they could from my subpoena. That now makes 9 Republican senators that the Biden DOJ issued subpoenas and tried to get their cell phone records. We're going to break that down. We're going to talk about what an extraordinary abuse of power this is, what a nakedly political action it is. We're going to break all that down for you. We're also going to talk about, I spent about 2 hours with President Trump at the Oval Office today at the White House. He invited all the Republican senators to have lunch with him. We're going to talk to you about everything that went on and what's going on. And by the way, the Democrats losing their minds because President Trump is paying to improve the White House and to make some really significant additions to the White House. And apparently that for the Democrats is unspeakably horrible.
Yeah, it really is incredible. All right, I got to talk to you real quick about an awesome company, and it is Backyard Butchers. You've heard about Big Pharma, but have you heard of Big Ag? Did you know that 85% of American beef is controlled by just 4 major companies? And just because you buy American doesn't mean you're buying healthy. And buying organic only means they control what the cattle eat, not how they live. Well, Backyard Butchers is a Texas steer steaks company. It comes directly from a real Texas ranch where the cattle are raised, then processed and shipped from the same location, completely bypassing Big Ag. Now, these Texas steers are 98% grass-fed. That's really important. And then 2% natural grain finished, and that's how you get those incredible marbling in your steaks. With no growth hormones, no antibiotics, and no preservatives. The quality and the flavor are phenomenal. Now, I just got a box the other day, and I can tell you, all 3 of my boys, they said the same thing. Dad, this is amazing. We want more steak. And that's exactly what I gave them, more steak after that. So, if you're all about making America healthy again, well, then it starts by going back to the roots and eating real meat from the hardworking ranchers who raise cattle the right way in Texas. So go to backyardbutchers.com. And if you enter the promo code VERDICT, that's VERDICT, you're going to get up to 30% off and 2 free 10-ounce ribeyes on top of that. Free shipping when you subscribe, and you can fight back against Big Ag with your fork, support American ranchers, and just get a great steak. Backyardbutchers.com, promo code VERDICT. And you're going to get, again, up to 30% off and those 2 free 10-ounce ribeyes. Backyardbutchers.com, promo code VERDICT. You're going to love it. All right, Senator, so let's start with the big news. Where were you when you found out that you were spied on as part of Jack Smith's investigation into Donald Trump? This clearly is a fishing expedition. And what were you told? Have you been briefed on this, or are you just getting the same intel we are from reading it in the news?
So I found out about this last Thursday. I got the information. And let's back up a couple of weeks ago. A couple of weeks ago, the news broke that Jack Smith, the prosecutor in the Biden DOJ that was going after January 6th, that was going after President Trump, had subpoenaed 8 senators and 1 Republican House member and had gotten their cell phone records. And the 8 senators who had been subpoenaed were Marsha Blackburn, Ron Johnson, Bill Hagerty, Josh Hawley, Cynthia Lummis, Lindsey Graham, Dan Sullivan, and Tommy Tuberville. And then Mike Kelly, a Republican House member from Pennsylvania, was also subpoenaed. All 9 of them had their cell phone records handed over to the Biden Department of Justice. Now, I got to admit, just over a week ago, Sean Hannity was in town, and I had dinner with Sean. and with several of the senators on that list as well. And I was laughing with Sean. I was saying, I'm actually kind of offended. Like, how did I get left out of this list? Like, what did I have to do?
Dude, yeah, to make the list, right?
I was literally standing on the Senate floor on January 6th, objecting and leading the fight. And I had brought together 11 senators to stand together in fighting for an election commission to assess the evidence of voter fraud, and including many of the senators who were subpoenaed were in the group that I'd brought together. So I was joking with Sean, but I wasn't entirely joking. Well, it turns out the reason I was not on the list is apparently all 8 of those senators, their cell phones are with Verizon. And the evidence had come out that Verizon had handed over their cell phone information. Well, my cell phone is with AT&T, and I didn't know it at the time, but I found out late last week that Jack Smith sent a subpoena to AT&T demanding my cell phone records, and AT&T told him to go jump in a lake. AT&T did not give my cell phone records. I really, look, AT&T is based in Texas. I'm proud of them. They did the right thing. I appreciate that. And they assessed it. They had a subpoena from Jack Smith. By the way, the subpoena called for, quote, detailed records for inbound and outbound calls, text messages, direct connect, and voicemail messages, among other things. So they were seeking that. There was also an order from Judge Boasberg, who was, this left-wing judge who's been presiding over much of the litigation against Trump, had an order from Judge Boasberg ordering AT&T, you cannot disclose to Cruz that we're seeking his cell phone information for a year.
Isn't that amazing, by the way? Hey, you sitting United States Senator, don't tell him, we don't want him to know. Yes.
And so AT&T examined it, and they came to the conclusion. Now, the way it works, so the subpoena just comes, and they get a cell phone number. So the Biden DOJ didn't identify who they were seeking. And by the way, look, the telecom companies, typically, if they get a subpoena for phone records on a number, they typically hand it over because it's usually a drug dealer, a criminal. You have a subpoena that's issued from a grand jury, so they will routinely in a criminal proceeding hand over. Well, it so happened that AT&T, even though they just asked for the number, they looked and realized whose number it was, and they talked with their legal team. And they said, listen, what Cruz is saying is, and any member of Congress, what they're saying is protected by the speech and debate clause of the Constitution. The Constitution protects the ability of senators and House members to engage in debate, to do our jobs. Article 1 of the Constitution vests all legislative power in the Congress. And in fact, on January 6th, it was very literally speech and debate. As I said, I was standing on the Senate floor, giving a speech and raising an objection. So it's literally the heart of what one does as an elected member of Congress. And so AT&T concluded, listen, we're not going to comply. As I said, I'm grateful for AT&T doing that, but that now makes it 9 senators that we know of, and one House member.
I'm guessing there might be other senators that were also at AT&T, and they probably said, no, we're not going to do that either, right? It would be Verizon just caved instantly and said, sure, here's everybody you're asking for. There could be easily, I would say, another 4, 5, 6 others. Who knows how many outside the Senate, right, that they could have asked for, that they could have said no to as well. And I would assume there was a lot of people on AT&T.
Well, and look, the Biden DOJ also went after the Republican Attorney Generals Association. It went after Turning Point USA. This was a massive fishing expedition. And this was a political persecution. Understand, Jack Smith was appointed special counsel to investigate and prosecute January 6th, 3 days after Donald Trump announced his campaign for re-election in 2024. Yeah. Literally 3 days later. So it was 2022. So it was 2 years after January 6th. They had not appointed anyone. And yet suddenly when Trump announces his campaign, they rush to appoint Jack Smith to say, go after Donald Trump because we want to stop the voters from voting for him.
Sure.
But 9 senators, that is 20% of the Republicans in the United States Senate. And I got to say, for the executive branch to engage in wholesale spying on their political opponents and spying with, let's be clear, none of us engaged in criminal conduct. None of us engaged in anything remotely criminal, arguably criminal. This was political persecution. This was snooping. This is hoping someone said something,
so
texted.
Here's what I was going to ask you. What were they hoping to find, right? Like you go fishing, and what is the smoking gun in that scenario? They were just, hey, we'll just go after all these conservatives, and maybe we get lucky.
Look, I don't know what they were hoping to find, but they were asking for the cell phone records from January 4th to January 7th, so all surrounding January 6th. I assume they were looking for some modicum of coordination with those who engaged in active violence on that day. Part of their theory was the alternate electors that were being sent from various states, so I assume they were looking for some modicum of coordination there. But this was a political prosecution because they did not have evidence, and so they said, well, let's go through their cell phone records and see if we can find something. And by the way, who knows if somebody had sent something stupid via text, had a voicemail, people. When you go through someone's emails, when you go through someone's cell phones, when prosecutors go looking for a crime, the nature of a fishing expedition is let's go look around. There's a book that was written decades ago that's called 3 Felonies a Day. And it talks about how the average American commits 3 felonies a day, that in our regulatory state, things are so complicated, things are so mired in complexity that you can violate, you step on a wetland in your backyard. And there's an old line that a prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
That a prosecutor goes in front of a grand jury. When a prosecutor goes in front of a grand jury, there's no defense attorney there. Yeah. It's just the prosecutor and members of the grand jury. And so I don't know what they were looking for. I think they were looking for anything that could stick because this was a political prosecution.
Let me ask you this. If they
and so, Ben, I just want to say I'm really grateful they did not find the pictures you sent of me of you in a pink tutu, because I just think that it's not
all
criminal.
My Ivy League jokes that I send you about the Ivy League snobs. I mean, Jack Smith probably ended up going to one of those places. That could have been very bad for me.
It would have been, and I got to say, just the typos and misspellings that you have in your text, that alone would have been a little bit embarrassing too. So I'm glad none of that came out.
The good news is they're very hard to decipher when if it's in front of Congress. Like, it's what was Ben really trying to say, and I'm like, you're welcome. I
will tell you, Ben. I talked to AT&T today, and I said, look, you guys ought to start a marketing campaign of shift to AT&T. We'll protect your stuff.
We don't
kudos to them.
Like Verizon.
I don't have a good answer to that, but I did, and I didn't know about this until just a few days ago. So this was when the first news broke. I was joking that I felt excluded, but it wasn't entirely a joke. And then I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And
here we are. All right, final question on this. What is going to be the response from Congress? Will there be any to this, or is this just old administration abuse of power? It is what it is. We're going to move on. Or is there going to be a way to make sure, like, we have standards that this is not allowed to happen and that people are held accountable for this?
Look, I think we're going to see hearings. I think we've got hearings coming in the House. I think we'll see hearings in the Senate. I will tell you, the 9 of us who were targeted, we're talking to each other because we want to prevent this. We want to prevent a subsequent DOJ from doing this, from spying on their political opponents, particularly in Congress. The executive doesn't have the ability to go engage in spying on members of the opposing party in Congress. That is an abuse of power. This prosecution was called Arctic Frost, and I think this is going to be the Watergate of the Biden DOJ. I think it is a demonstration that Jack Smith was a partisan prosecutor who was drunk on power. Yeah. And I don't believe Jack Smith made this decision on his own. I think the decision making goes all the way up. I think it goes up to the Attorney General. I think it goes up to the White House. And so I expect, number one, some real investigation and hopefully transparency in terms of who approved let's go spy on members of Congress. And that I think we're going to work to have some real transparency on, and that I think we're going to look at real and concrete steps we can take to make sure this never happens again, because this kind of abuse.
Is there part of you that just thinks like maybe this has just been going on and never really stopped after you know the famous FBI director that had files on everybody and people said, well, we won't have that again after Jagger, and now it's like they're just like Wild West. You can do whatever the hell you want to if you're a Democrat and you're in charge. Like, we can spy on the president, we can spy on the campaigns, we can go after people in the Situation Room and entrap them. We can try to go after their business associates and their kids and get them to turn against them. Like Eric Trump was talking about that on our show the other day. If you missed that show, people should go back and listen to it. He's like, they were literally trying to turn Donald Trump's own children against him, threatening that your life's going to be over and you're going to be in jail, so you better get a get out of jail free card. And now it's like, and we were also spying on senators. I'm assuming some congressmen will come out. Like, who knows who's there? Charlie Kirk said recently, before his assassination, it came out that he said during the campaign, we either win the campaign or I may go to jail. I actually believe now, witnessing what we've seen, that that's not far off from reality at all.
Look, the left was willing to weaponize the Department of Justice and the FBI. As you know, I wrote an entire book entitled Justice Corrupted: How the Left Has Weaponized Our Legal System. And it talked about, it actually started with Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon tried to do that. And you look at some of the harebrained schemes that the Nixon Justice Department came up with, including creating underground stings to get people to get people on film taking drugs and with prostitutes to use to essentially blackmail them, and to go after their political opponents. I mean, it was grotesque abuse of power. And when that came to light, we actually saw an improvement, and there were a couple of decades where I think this receded and occurred far less. And then what Richard Nixon tried to do to the justice system, Barack Obama succeeded in doing. He came in as this almost messiah figure, and DOJ, Eric Holder as Attorney General, you had Lois Lerner at the IRS. They began targeting their political opponents, targeting anyone that they disagreed with, and also protecting their friends. During the Trump administration, the first term, they went underground, but they waged war on the president. These are the people that created fraudulent documents submitted to the FISA court in order to try to go after President Trump. They wanted to reverse the results of the 2016 election because they were furious that the American people elected Trump. And then during Biden, they were open, they were flagrant, they were out in the open, and they were abusing their power. And I think they felt that the ends justified the means, and anything was acceptable. And so I think we need to take real steps. Do I think this has been going on forever and ever? I don't. I certainly hope not. I'm not aware that it has. There's ancient history, but it took really, I think, under Biden to make it just as viciously partisan as it became. Yes.
Yeah. Wheels came off and no one cared about the rules anymore, clearly. It's incredible. All right, so let's go to something else that is obviously big. You were at the White House meeting with the president. You guys were asked to come over and check out the construction site that the left is losing their minds over right now. By the way, can we just talk about that for a second before we get the government shut down? This is hysterical. There have been multiple presidents that, by the way, have done different things to the White House. The majority of the time, it's actually paid for by taxpayers. This time, this is being paid for by Trump and donors, so it's not costing the taxpayers a dime. It's a huge improvement to the White House that every future president will be able to use. I love that. And yet the lies that are out there is that Donald Trump is like destroying the White House and he's gone rogue and he's destroying America's house and it's going to cost you money while the government's shut down. Like there's tons of Democrats out there putting it out there going, oh, so the government shut down, but Donald Trump's spending money on this, implying that like this government shutdown doesn't involve his plans. Yeah, because it's private money, you liars. So you were there, you saw it, and I'm sure it came up.
Yeah, President Trump invited all the Republican senators to come over, and we came and joined him. We had lunch with him. He served cheeseburgers and French fries. I got to say the cheeseburgers were really good. There was actually a rumor he was going to serve McDonald's.
I was going to say, was it McDonald's? Because he did that before when there was a shutdown.
Yeah, look, there was a rumor that he was going to serve McDonald's, and I think it is at or near the anniversary of when he went to work at a McDonald's restaurant, which was one of the classic moments of the campaign last year.
Yeah.
And so he did not serve McDonald's. They were, I think, the White House chef made they were good cheeseburgers. They were actually they were quite good, and he was in as good a mood as I've ever seen him. He was just happy. So we met in the Rose Garden, and the Rose Garden, it's right off the Oval Office. And it is surrounded by rose bushes, and it used to be like the ground was just a lawn, and it was just grass.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. The president talked about this quite a bit, and you can actually watch it on TV. He was on TV, and the cameras were there as he was talking. But he's a builder. He's excited about this. There was a joy as he was talking about this project, and he said, look, the Rose Garden, the problem was it was grass. When it rained, it would get muddy. You'd do events here, and you're trudging through the mud and the grass. He said,
it's true. I've been there for this.
Yeah. Women would be there in expensive high heels. The high heels would be sinking into the mud. They'd ruin their shoes. They would get upset. And so what he did is he built a patio instead. So he did not, I was told not a single rose was killed. The rose bushes are all there. But instead of the grass in the middle, he built a white marble patio that is matching the stone on the White House itself. So it's very much, it's the same color. It's the same theme.
It clearly ties in aesthetically.
And it's actually beautifully done. Like I was impressed. And like, for example, around the patio, there are a series of drains, and the way they built it, the drains are an American flag where they have, probably an 8x8, 10x10 marble square that is the stars, and then they have the same size marble squares that is a series of horizontal slits that are the drains, but they have them alternating, so it's clearly American flags surrounding it all.
That's cool.
And it's really elegant. It's very well done, and it gives a place to go and sit. And today was a beautiful fall day, so it was a great day to gather. And then the president is also building a ballroom. It's amazing. The White House does not have a ballroom.
Correct.
The biggest room in the White House is the East Room.
Yep.
But the East Room is not that big. Like if you're doing a seated dinner there, you can get maybe 80 people there.
Yeah, I've been in there for dinner. It is, it's tight. Like there's not a lot of room to mingle, much less dance. And I don't think, if you've never been to the White House, I do think this is something that people, I think they think it's a lot bigger than it really is.
Yeah.
It's really not that big. When you go in the West Wing, for example, it's extremely tight. The offices are tiny for the senior staff, even the chief of staff. The White House press office, every office is it's like a closet with a door. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
The East Wing, by the way, and one of my dear friends worked for Laura Bush in her office, so I was over there a lot and actually go see the dogs. And so that they always had the dogs in the East Wing. So like if you wanted a break just to get away, we would go over there and you'd give a treat, play with the dog, throw the ball outside on the White House lawn. But it was also very tiny because it was not built for what our government is today, even the size of the staff. Like the White House, the First Lady's staff was nothing, and the First Lady's role was nothing compared to what it is in 2025. So when they're like, we're going to expand this out on the East Side, it's like, that makes sense. Like this should have probably been done 30 years ago.
And there's a whole history of presidents going back more than a century of making additions to the White House, adding the West Wing, adding the Oval Office, adding the second floor, adding an indoor swimming pool, and then Richard Nixon filled the indoor swimming pool. It was actually a very funny.
The bowling alley.
Yeah. Look.
By the way, go back to the swimming pool story. That's a good one.
Yeah, so Trump was telling the swimming pool story. And he said, when JFK was president, Jackie would come by and she'd say, "Wait, am I hearing?" Because this was an indoor swimming pool.
Yeah.
And Jackie's like, "Am I hearing women?" And Trump was saying, the Secret Service said, "No, ma'am, no, there are no women in there. You have to move on." And it was a very funny like riff. And then when Nixon came in, he filled up the swimming pool and turned it into the press briefing room.
Yeah.
And so that's where the White House press briefings are today, is they're literally standing on top of what used to be the indoor swimming pool. many of those previous revisions used taxpayer money. Trump is not using taxpayer money. The building the patio was not done using
the American flag he just put up. The two big American flags he's put up is a great example of that.
And the ballroom, the project is expected to be over $200 million. It's going to be a beautiful ballroom. They're building it. They're talking about it being able to seat 600-700 people. And by the way, every subsequent president will use that. If you're doing a state dinner, if you're doing a gathering, the ability to host a larger gathering is a very useful thing for a president to be able to do, regardless of your party. I mean, it will be a real and material improvement to the White House. And I got to say, just listening to the president talk about it, he's so proud of he likes building things. I mean, that's his whole
back
career.
To his roots. Like this is him at a core.
Well, and then so we had a lunch, and he was talking about the shutdown. He was talking about everything that's going on. And then afterwards, he said, okay, and I want to ask all you guys, come on into the Oval Office with me and join me in the Oval. So we had, there were 50 plus of us there, so we all came into the Oval, which is not that big, and we crowded around. And Trump took us back to what he calls the Monica Lewinsky room.
Yes.
It's not complicated to figure out why he calls that the Monica Lewinsky room.
It's now the great gift shop that you cannot buy anything in. You're only gifted it directly from the president.
So it's the room where Bill Clinton was alone and, shall we say, stained the blue dress with Monica. I have to admit,
I love how you say, shall we say. I like that. That was nice.
I have to admit, I was tempted to suggest to President Trump that he actually put up a sign naming it the Monica Lewinsky Room, but I haven't yet. I might suggest that to him because I actually think there's a good chance he did. By the way, he created the Hall of Presidents along the Rose Garden where he has a photograph of every president. He starts with Washington. He's either a photograph or a painting of every president going up to 45 and 47, obviously both him. And in between 46, instead of a picture of Joe Biden, he has a picture of the auto pen, which is just hysterical. Yeah. Like that's the presidential picture along the Rose Garden is the auto pen because that's who was president for 4 years. So he invites us all into the Oval, and then he takes everyone into the Monica Lewinsky room is not very big.
No, it's maybe tiny. It's a closet.
By 10 feet?
Yeah,
it's a little office right off the Oval, so it's down like a really short hallway, and it's to the left. And as he's basically put a gift shop there, and he has all sorts of bling.
All right, so if you're watching the video, here's one of the blings. That's something that he gave me when I was there, and like it's all this kind of stuff, and it's like, and then I always like this one because he's like Ben, he goes, make sure you get your kids taken care of. So the presidential M&Ms, he'll have those in there. The best part is the M&M on the back. That's what my kids love the most. This just random tokens on my desk here. By the way, the kids, if you know that they don't care that much because the M&Ms are gone. They're like, we're going to eat those. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, you might want to save the box.
So, and he's got tons of hats. He's got MAGA hats. He's got Trump 2028, which he was laughing. He says this drives the press crazy. They just lose their mind when I have Trump 2028. He had cufflinks and he told every senator, take whatever you want. Like just grab whatever you want. It's all free. He's paying for it all. Yeah. And so there's a very cool golf towel that he had that I just thought was cool looking.
Thank you. Way to look out for your co-host here. I appreciate you getting me a golf towel. Because you don't play golf, that means a lot. That means a whole lot to me, Senator.
It is a beautiful golf towel.
What a nice guy you are.
It has Donald Trump's signature. It's gorgeous.
By the way, I just want the audience to be clear. He did not commit that golf towel is for me. Keep going.
Okay, let's be clear. You know the answer to that. But what is funny, and so Trump said, hey, grab whatever you want. And he said, I'll sign whatever you want.
Yeah.
And he sat there for 30 minutes at the Resolute desk just signing stuff.
Yeah.
And what was funny, he was laughing. He made this joke, but he's true. He said, it's amazing. You have like some stuff in the gift shop, and suddenly senators turn into 5-year-old kids. I mean, we were literally lined up and being like, ooh, that looks cool. I'm going to grab, like, people were grabbing.
That. He's got his Pro V1 golf balls he's very proud of with the presidential seal on there. He signed one of those for one of my boys. And his cufflinks, by the way, are truly incredible. You've got a pair, right?
I do.
Yeah, I mean, they're nice.
And he's got, like, challenge coins he's made that are about this big. I mean, they're probably 3 inches in diameter, and they're really cool. And I have two on my desk, but I will confess. So he keeps the challenge coins on the Resolute desk right there. I will confess I snagged two of those because I'm going to give one to each of my daughters. I figured that would be kind of a cool thing to bring back home.
100%. Want to take a moment and just talk to you real quick about an incredible opportunity for you to continue to expand your mind and learn no matter what your age is. Senator Cruz and I were at the memorial service for Charlie Kirk, and one of the people that spoke was the president of Hillsdale College. And he talked about meeting with Charlie early on and how he said, you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to suffer. And you're going to have to continue to learn when he was so young. And he talked about all of the classes that Charlie ended up taking at Hillsdale. I immediately said, I want the listeners of this show to be able to have the same opportunity to do that. There are amazing classes: history, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. And if you didn't study these things in school, or maybe you did, but you were like, just trying to check the box and make the grade when you're 20, now is a great time for you to go back and learn so much more. Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free, I want to say that again, 40 free online courses. That's right, more than 40 free online courses. You can learn about the works of C.S. Lewis, the stories in the book of Genesis, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. I'm doing that one. It's incredible. The rise and fall of the Roman Republic, or the history of the ancient Christian church, with Hillsdale College's free online courses. Now, I'm also looking at the Constitution 101. It's amazing, a refresher course, and you can see and explore the design, the purpose of the Constitution, the challenges it faced in the Civil War, and how it's been undermined for more than a century by progressives and liberals. This 12-lecture course is self-paced, so you start whenever you want to, and it is truly amazing. So how do you do this? You can go right now to hillsdale.edu/verdict to enroll. There is no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/verdict, VERDICT, to enroll for free and take any one of these classes. Take advantage of it. It's free. hillsdale.edu/VERDICT, verdict, and go check out the amazing classes they have there. Senator, one more question on the Senator's meeting today, serious question, and that is, give us a real update on where we are with the shutdown. We had the No Kings rally. I think your prediction and mine are going to be spot on. We're going to see some movement probably in the next 5, 6, 7 days. That's my gut. You know more. You were there today. What is the temperature and where are we?
So, look, it's hard to say. We keep voting. I think we've voted 11 or 12 times to reopen the government. The Republicans are voting to reopen the government. I've voted over and over and over again to reopen the government. And the Democrats are voting party line to keep the government shut down. We've had to date only 3 Democrats have voted to reopen the government. Everyone else has voted no. Now, the reason that matters is in order to pass legislation funding the government, you need 60 votes in the Senate under the Senate rules. If you can't get 60 votes, you can't pass it. We only have 53 Republicans. That means we need at least 7 Democrats. If we're getting 3 Democrats, we don't have the votes. Now, at some point that is going to change. What's interesting is it's not just the radical left. It's not just the Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warrens who are voting to shut the government down. It's not just Chuck Schumer, who's terrified of being primaried by AOC. It's everybody else. It's people who are claiming that they're moderates that are voting to shut the government down. John Ossoff, who is the most vulnerable Democrat in the Senate. He's running in Georgia next year.
Yeah.
John Ossoff has voted 11 times to keep the government shut down. It's very clear, even though Georgia is a purple state, even though there are a lot of people who are not happy with that. By no stretch of the imagination is Georgia a radical left state. And yet it's clear Ossoff is more afraid of the radicals at the No Kings rallies than he is of just ordinary people living in Georgia.
Yeah.
Mark Kelly, who says he calls himself a moderate, he keeps voting to keep the government shut down. In order for this to change, what you're ultimately going to see is 7, 8, 9 Democrats. I think mostly retiring Democrats who are no longer going to face the voters who are not worried about being primaried.
Bingo.
At some point, they're going to say, enough is enough. Let's reopen the government. But I don't know if it's a day or two. I don't know if it's a week or two. I don't know. Look, we're having discussions that things could be shut down, through Thanksgiving. One of the challenges is we're so tribalized and divided right now that I think the Democrats are listening to an echo chamber of the radical base.
Yeah.
And their radical base is happy with the shutdown. So
they want to burn it down. They want this country to fall. They want there to be a demise of our government, especially when they're not in charge of it. If they're not in charge of it, they want to burn it down.
And listen, on Friday, I went to Hobby Airport in Houston, and I did a press conference there. And I pointed out that right now there are 50,000 TSA agents who are going into work who are not getting paid. Right now there are 14,000 air traffic controllers who are going into work, but they're not getting paid. And what we're seeing is more and more delays. We're seeing flight cancellations. Hobby just today had a ground stop because they said a shortage of personnel, air traffic controllers.
Yep.
And the Democrats, they don't care. They're perfectly happy. One Democrat told Politico, said, we'll keep it shut down, quote, until planes start falling out of the sky. Like, that's how radicalized they are. And they don't care about the government workers. They're mad at Trump for paying the troops.
Yeah.
And so, look, I think at some point sanity will prevail and they'll allow the lights to be turned on. I'll tell you what I've advised the president. The president referred to Russ Vought, who's the head of OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, and he laughingly called Russ Darth Vader. He said the Democrats are terrified because Russ is using the shutdown to permanently lay off left-wing bureaucrats who are advancing programs and priorities that the Democrats care about that are inconsistent with the president's agenda. I think that's one of the keys to ending this shutdown is continuing to do that. And so making it painful to the radical left because they're losing
their influence.
Yes. And so this will end at some point, but honest answer, Ben, damned if I know when.
Interesting. Don't forget, we'll cover it all here. We do the show 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. A lot of them we do on video, so also subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that subscribe or auto download button so you don't miss an episode. We'll keep you updated on what's happening with the government shutdown. You'll know about it probably before a lot of others will because you get insider information. That's why I love doing this show. And the Senator and I will see you back here on Friday morning.